I coined this new term. We're dealing with trickle-down Marxism.
So yes, this was his second home tax, right? And I said at the time, listen, as an attorney, I do a lot of estate planning and probate work, and life finds a way, Torrey. If you try to institute another massive tax, people will find a way to try to avoid that tax. And it's not just the billionaires. So there was actually this interesting story. I don't remember which publication had this, but it was about all these estate planning attorneys in New York suddenly being very busy because everybody who got a letter that was sent out by the state, a lot of people are coming to attorneys and estate tax planning people saying, is there a legal way to avoid this? Like, how can I put my house in a trust? Can I put it in an LLC? And I said at the time, Zoran Mamdani is just going to create a lot more work for attorneys than he is anybody else. He's not going to collect the $500 million that he thinks he's going to collect.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the context of this, basically we talked in one of our previous episodes, and we should actually link it here, about this second home tax. But they started letting people know about who's going to pay. So 17,000 notices went out, and basically this letter came and said, hey, you owe this surcharge to the tune of sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. We'll get to one example in just a moment. You owe the surcharge, and if you don't want to pay it, you have to prove to us that this isn't your second home.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane. And I think that in Zoran Mamdani's case, this is just kind of demonstrating why it's never enough for your Marxist, right? It's always going to trickle down at some point. But I'm really frustrated for the homeowners that are getting these letters basically saying, I owe all this money. This is my primary estate. What's going on here?
Yeah, and so remember, this was Zoran Mamdani coming in on this very progressive wave, and not only was he going to have government-run grocery stores, he was going to institute this second home tax on the billionaires. It was supposed to be for the very, very wealthy people.
With private planes and yachts.
That's what I thought. And so instead, what they did is they sent out 17,000 notices to people and said, you may be subject to this surcharge. Oh, you don't think you are? Prove it. And that's what's so crazy about this, because they're putting it on the homeowners to prove that this is their primary residence. And what's crazy is that they're having to send in documents that are actually available on the state websites anyways. These are your documents.
Government efficiency at its finest.
Oh my gosh, yes. But it puts people on the defensive. And this is where I get really frustrated, because the burden of proof is supposed to be on the government. You have to prove that I have a second home. And a lot of the people that are coming out and saying, I've lived in this house since 1972. I don't have any other homes. You said this was going to be a second home tax, but that is the moral of the story, isn't it, Torrey?
Yes, one of the women that they were talking about got a bill for $43,000. This is a surcharge. This is on top of your normal property taxes. Now, again, she's not our level of middle class, right? She's doing well, but definitely not a billionaire. We have no private jets that we can tell, nothing that we can tell. And she basically says, look, this is my primary residence. Why are you sending me this bill for $43,000? Again, whenever you're dealing with Marxism, I coined this new term. We're dealing with trickle-down Marxism.
Yes.
It never stops with the billionaires, Yuripzy.
It doesn't even start with the billionaires half the time, they will know how to structure things in ways. And just so everybody knows, like I said, I do a lot of estate planning and probate work. This is not things that I do for billionaires. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've had a single client who is a billionaire. Most of my clients
You'd be driving a nicer car if you did.
Oh, I sure would, right? What do you have against my car? I like my car. No, but yes, I would. I wouldn't even be driving, period. I would
private driver.
Yes, exactly. But most of the people that come to me are middle class, and a lot of them are people who are retiring and they have a home that they've lived in, like this woman, since the 1970s. Yeah. And again, this was supposed to be on your second home for people who have these abandoned homes in New York, and they just, they only come there every now and again. And that was what the purpose was. But Torrey, the truth is, the middle class will always pay. It's not the billionaires.
It is never the case. And what Zoran Mamdani is basically convincing people is that he's only going after the billionaires, right? He just released a video tapping it. We're going to tax the rich. We're going to tax the rich. Well, what's your definition of rich? right? It's a pretty
yeah.
broad spectrum that we're dealing with. Stop trusting these politicians. Seriously, stop it, right? They keep telling you all of this stuff. It never stops at that level. Now, again, I'm not saying we should never explore policies, but this one was like, we saw this coming a mile away. When we did our video the last time, we said this was exactly what was going to happen. I think they're going to walk it back and they're going to be like, well, hold on. We just sent out these notices. It's not really a big deal. But again, if you got this notice, you have to prove that you aren't in this billionaire with a, jet class situation.
Yeah.
I don't know why people continue to trust people like Mamdani.
There's an old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and but I think people have this, especially people who are in this very like progressive mindset. It's like they have this, I don't understand. They just don't want to, or like reality does not play a role in the conversation, because it sounds great that yes, we're going to tax the billionaires on their second home. All right, walk me through how you are going to figure that out. Like who are the billionaires? What are the second homes? How are you going to make sure that you're not involving the middle class? Because here's the other thing too. They talked about when the Department of Housing was asked about this, they're also looking at condos and co-op second homes that have a market value of over $1 million. They are eligible to be taxed, as are the smaller homes that are over $5 million. Because again, I thought this was $5 million, but now we're including condos and co-op second homes. And $1 million property in New York is not $1 million property anywhere else. I mean, you could be talking about a shoebox apartment and it's worth $1 million. And again, that's the market value. That's not what it would actually sell for. And I know for us, like we recently got our property assessments last year, and you want to talk about angry people, because they're like, what do you mean my house is assessed at $1 million? I could not, if I told a realtor to put it on the market for $1 million, they would be like, well, ma'am, you're crazy, because that's not exactly what it's worth.
Yeah.
And that's how they're kind of playing with these numbers. And I'm telling you, the people that are going to be burned, Torrey, it's the middle class.
Always. And look, I really do feel that as you start looking into this forward, this is a cautionary tale for anyone that believes in these radical progressives, these Democrat socialists of America. This is a cautionary tale. You may be looking at those wealthy billionaires and be like, ha, you're going to get yours. It doesn't matter. They're coming and they're just, creeping right down. Next thing they're going to be talking about 10,000 heirs, right? And oh, you're making more than $150,000. You need to pay your fair share. This never stays with the upper class billionaires. I think people need to take a really strong lesson from this, to be honest.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not over yet, because you said they sent out 17,000 letters. That's a small fraction of the over 959,000 properties that they have included on their initial list as potentially subject to this surcharge. So check out your mailbox, there may be another one coming.